What's up, guys? Alex Staunch here once again, this time doing something a little different. I am an avid book reader, as I hope all of you listening are as well. Now, one of my all-time favorite authors is Stephen King. Who doesn't love Stephen King, though? The man is a legend. One of my personal favorites still is Different Seasons. Now, this one features all of the big movies. It has Shawshank Redemption, which is Rita Hayworth in the Shawshank Redemption. It has Apt Pupil, which was made into a film, starring Brad Renfro. R.I.P. Brad Renfro. And then, of course, it has The Body, which is later turned into Stand By Me. And it also has this really great little tale called The Breathing Method that I really hope gets made into a feature film sometime. Anyways, one thing that always kind of irked me about the fantastic film that is Stand By Me, one of Stephen King's best adaptations, hands down, starring my main man, motherfucking Corey Feldman. One of my all-time favorite movies, definitely in my top 5 for sure. I like it better than, any other contemporary tale that's similar to it. I think this one definitely set the standard, especially for films. So upon returning home, and everyone kind of goes home, faces their parents and whatnot. Well, let me just pick it up from here, from page 424, chapter 31. The story never did get out. Oh, I don't mean that Ray Brower's body was never found. It was. But neither our gang nor their gang got the credit. In the end, Ace must have decided on an anonymous phone call as being the safest course, because that's how the location of the corpse was reported. What I meant was that none of our parents ever found out what we've been up to on that Labor Day weekend. Chris's dad was still drinking, just as Chris said he would be. His mom had gone off to Lewiston to stay with her sister, the way she almost did when Mr. Chambers was on a bender. She went and left Eyeball in charge of the younger kids. Eyeball had fulfilled his responsibility by going off with Ace and JD and his buddies, leaving 9-year-old Sheldon, 5-year-old Emery, and 2-year-old Deborah to sink or swim on their own. Teddy's mom got worried the second night and called Vern's mom. Vern's mom, who was never going to be on the game show circuit, said we're still out in Vern's tent. She knew because she had seen a light on in there the night before. Teddy's mom said she sure hoped no one was smoking cigarettes in there, and Vern's mom said it looked more like a flashlight to her. And besides, she was sure that none of Vern or Billy's friends smoked. Now this was all told, of course, through Gordy's perspective. My dad asked me some vague questions, looking mildly troubled at my evasive answers. Said we'd go fishing together sometime, and that was the end of it. If the parents had gotten together in the week or two afterward, everything would have fallen down. But they never did. Milo Pressman never spoke up either. My guess is that he thought twice about it being our word against his, and how we would swear that he all sick chopper on me. So the story never came out. But that wasn't the end of it. One day near the end of the month, while I was walking home from school, a black 1952 Ford cut into the curb in front of me. There was no mistaking that car. Gangster white walls and spinner hubcaps, high-rise chrome bumpers, and lucite death knob with a rose embedded in it clamped to the steering wheel. Painted on a back deck was the Deuce and One-Eyed Jack. Beneath him, in Roman Gothic script, were the words Wild Card. The doors flew open. Ace Merrill and Fuzzy Brackowitz stepped out. Cheap hood, right? Ace said, smiling his gentle smile. My mother loves the way I do it to her, right? We're gonna rack you, baby, Fuzzy said. I dropped my school books on the sidewalk and ran. I was busting my buns, but they caught me before I even made the end of the block. Ace hit me with a flying tackle, and I went full length on the paving. My chin hit the cement, and I didn't just see stars. I saw whole constellations. Whole nebulae. I was already crying when they picked me up. Not so much from my elbows and knees, both pairs scraped and bleeding, or even from fear. It was vast, impotent rage that made me cry. Chris was right. He had been ours. Referring right there to Ray Brower, of course. And he goes on saying, I twisted and turned and almost squiggled free. Then Fuzzy hoiked his knee into my crotch. The pain was amazing, incredible, non-parallel. It widened the horizons of pain from plain old widescreen to VistaVision. I began to scream. Screaming seemed to be my best chance. And so pretty much like Gordon goes home after that, and, they try finding out who beat him up, and he doesn't tell him. And, his parents are still reeling over the death of his brother, and it's kind of a non-issue Now, Chris got it pretty bad. He wound up with a broken arm and a sling. Now, I really want everyone else to go and read this book, so I'm leaving some things vague as best as I can. Vern and Teddy took their lumps too, although not as bad as either Chris or I. Billy was waiting for Vern when Vern got home. He took to him with a shovel length and hit him hard enough to knock him unconscious after only 4 or 5 good licks. Vern was no more than stunned, but Billy got scared he might have killed him and stopped. 3 of them caught Teddy walking home from a vacant lot one afternoon. They punched him out and broke his glasses. He fought them, but they wouldn't fight him when they realized he was groping after them like a blind man in the dark. We hung together at the school looking like the remains of a Korean assault force. Nobody knew exactly what had happened, but everybody understood that we'd had a pretty serious run-in with the big kids and comported ourselves like men. A few stories went around. All of them were wildly wrong. And then, it gets really depressing because we find out the fate of the rest of the guys. In the movie, we find out what happens to Gordy and to Chris, which is, sad on its own. But here's what happens to Vern and Teddy. Vern Tessio was killed in a house fire that swept the Lewiston apartment building in 1966 in Brooklyn and the Bronx. They call that sort of apartment building a slum tenement, I believe. The fire department said it started around 2 in the morning, and the entire building was nothing but cinders in a cellar hole by dawn. There had been a large drunken party. Vern was there. Someone fell asleep in one of the bedrooms with a live cigarette going. Vern himself, maybe, drifting off, dreaming of his pennies. They identified him and the 4 others who died by their teeth. Teddy went in a squalid car crash. That was 1971, I think. Or maybe it was early 1972. There used to be a saying when I was growing up. If you go out alone, you're a hero. Take somebody else with you in your dog piss. Teddy, who had wanted nothing but to be in the service since the time he was old enough to want anything, was turned down by the Air Force and classified 4F by the draft. Anyone who had seen his glasses and hearing aid knew it was going to happen. Anyone but Teddy. In his junior year at high school, he got a 3-day vacation from school for calling the guidance counselor a lying sack of shit. The GO had observed Teddy coming in every so often, like every day, and checking over his career board for new service literature. He told Teddy that maybe he should think about another career, and that was when Teddy blew his stack. He was held back a year for repeated absences, tardies, and the attendant flunked courses. But he did graduate. He had an ancient Chevrolet Bel Air. He used to hang around the places where Ace and Fuzzy and the rest had hung around before him. The pool hall, the dance hall, Sucky's Tavern, which is closed now, and the Mellow Tiger, which isn't. He eventually got a job with the Castle Rock Public Works Department, filling up holes with hot patch. The crash happened over in Harlow. Teddy's Bel Air was full of his friends. 2 of them had been part of that group he and Vern took to bossing around back in 1960. And they were all passing around a couple of joints and a couple of bottles of Popov when they hit a utility pole and sheared it off, and the Chevrolet rolled 6 times. One girl came out technically alive. She lay for 6 months in what nurses and orderlies at the Central Maine General call, what the CT ward, cabbages and turnips. Then some merciful phantom pulled the plug on her respirator. Teddy Duchamp was posthumously awarded the Dog Piss of the Year award. So then, of course, it goes on to tell the story of Chris Chambers, who struggled through his final years of school, made it into graduate school, went on with Gordy to study every night. There's some really cool stories about them being up all night and him really struggling and trying, and eventually making it. Near the end of 1971, Chris went into a Chicken Delight in Portland to get a 3-piece snack bucket. Just ahead of him, 2 men started arguing about which one had been first in line. One of them pulled a knife. Chris had always been the best at making peace, stepped between them, and was stabbed in the throat. The man with the knife had spent time in 4 different institutions. He had been released from Shawshank State Prison only a week before. Chris died almost instantly. I read about it in the paper. Chris had been finishing his 2nd year of graduate studies. Me, I had been married a year and a half and was teaching high school English. My wife was pregnant, and I was trying to write a book. When I read the news item, student fatally stabbed in Portland restaurant, I told my wife I was going out for a milkshake. I drove out of town, parked, and cried for him. Cried for damn near half an hour, I guess. I couldn't have done that in front of my wife. Much as I love her, it would have been pussy. Now it's crazy. These themes, they all come back around, like the masculinity and the poison that's just being bred down from the generations, ahead of them. That really does happen with young friends, and it's funny to see how he kind of reverts to being a kid again in his thinking, towards the end there when it comes to his best friend Chris Chambers. Now the final last little chapter of the body really is heartbreaking, and I'll just read it for you. Me, I'm a writer now. Like I said, a lot of critics think what I write is shit. A lot of the time I think they're right. But it still freaks me out to put those words, freelance writer, down in the occupation blank in the forms you have to fill out at credit desk and, in doctor's offices. My story sounds so much like a fairy tale that it's fucking absurd. I sold the book and it was made into a movie, and the movie got good reviews and it was a smash hit besides. This all happened by the time I was 26. The second book was made into a movie as well, as was the third. I told you, it's fucking absurd. Meantime, my wife doesn't seem to mind having me around the house, and we have 3 kids now. They all seem perfect to me, and most of the time I'm happy. But like I said, the writing isn't so easy or as much fun as it used to be. The phone rings a lot. Sometimes I get headaches, bad ones. And then I have to go into a dim room and lie down until they go away. The doctors say they aren't true migraines. He called them stress aches and told me to slow down. I worry about myself sometimes. What a stupid habit that is. And yet I can't quite seem to stop it. And I wonder if there's really any point to what I'm doing, or what I'm supposed to make of a world where a man can get rich playing Let's Pretend. But it's funny how I saw Ace Merrill again. My friends are dead, but Ace is alive. I saw him once pulling out of the mill parking lot just after the 3 o'clock whistle the last time I took my kids down home to see my dad. The 52 Ford had become a 77 Ford station wagon. A faded bumper sticker said, Reagan Bush, 1980. His hair was mowed into a crew cut and he'd gotten fat. The sharp, handsome features I remembered were buried under an avalanche of flesh. I had left the kids with Dad long enough to go downtown and get the paper. I was standing on the corner of Main and Carbine, and he glanced at me as I waited across. There was no sign of recognition on the face of this 32-year-old man, who had broken my nose in another dimension of time. I watched him wheel the Ford wagon into the dirt parking lot beside the Mellow Tiger, get out, hitch at his pants, and walk inside. I could imagine the brief wedge of country western as he opened the door, the brief sour whiff of Nick and Gansett on the draft, the welcoming shouts of other regulars as he closed the door and placed his large ass on the same stool which had probably held him up at least 3 to 4 hours every day of his life, except Sundays, since he was 21. I thought, so that's what Ace is now. I looked to the left, and beyond the mill I could see the Castle River, not so wide, but a little cleaner, still flowing under the bridge between Castle Rock and Harlow. The trestle upstream is gone, but the river is still around. So am I. And that's the ending of the novel. Now, I'd love that little story there, how he talks about just looking down the road and how things are subtly changed, but some things are still there. And I really like how it's a river, considering, River Phoenix and everything. I think that it's just a nice little piece of Stephen King magic there. I highly recommend you seek out different seasons. Check out every story in the book. If you guys want to hear more about the rest of the stories in the novel or any other Stephen King type stuff, let me know. I'd gladly do it. These are just some of my favorite characters, and I wanted everyone to know what happened to them after the magical movie that we all know and love. So shout out to Stephen King, shout out to Stand By Me, shout out to The Body, shout out to Different Seasons, and shout out to the Staunch Gang. Thank you for watching.